Sexual energy is not merely a biological impulse or a tool for reproduction. It is the very foundation of creative power in human life. From the moment of conception, sexual energy is responsible for the formation of life itself, but its role doesn't stop there. This energy is not confined to the bedroom, nor is it limited to acts of physical intimacy. It is an ever-present current running through us, capable of being channeled into higher, more refined forms of creation, art, ideas, visions, relationships, and personal evolution. When we speak of creativity, most people imagine artists, musicians, or inventors. Yet, what they are truly tapping into is the same primal force that drives all existence, the raw, potent energy of life that begins as sexual energy. It is the root of our instincts, our desire to connect, to express, to build, and to evolve. Whether we are creating a painting, writing a book, starting a business, or nurturing a relationship, we are engaging in acts of creation powered by this same core energy. This energy, when unacknowledged or suppressed, becomes chaotic. It turns inward, causing anxiety, frustration, depression, and sometimes self-destruction. But when it is honored, cultivated, and channeled with awareness, it becomes a source of limitless power and vitality. The key lies in understanding that sexual energy is neutral. It is neither good nor bad. It is simply raw fuel, and what we do with it determines its effect on our lives. Throughout history, mystics, sages, and visionaries have understood the sacred nature of this energy. They recognize that the creative impulse is not separate from the spiritual path. In fact, it is the very engine that drives it. When sexual energy rises through the body and is transformed, it feeds the higher centers of consciousness, awakening intuition, increasing clarity, and intensifying our magnetism. This is why so many esoteric traditions speak of Kundalini, Kai, or life force. Though the terminology differs, the underlying concept is the same. Sexual energy is the most powerful creative force within us, and it can be refined into spiritual and material power. In everyday life, we see glimpses of this transformation all around us. Think of individuals who possess a certain magnetic presence. They may not be traditionally attractive or wealthy, but there is a force within them, an aliveness, a vibrancy that draws others in. This is often the result of harnessed and redirected sexual energy. Rather than dissipating it through unconscious behaviors or compulsions, they hold it, cultivate it, and allow it to build creative tension. This tension becomes a radiant field that others can feel, even if they can't explain it. Creative geniuses throughout history have intuitively understood this dynamic. Their most powerful works were often born not during times of indulgence, but during periods of intense inner focus, desire, and longing. This longing, this urge to unite, to create, to express, is sexual energy in its purest form, rising upward rather than being discharged outward. The ability to delay gratification and transform that energy into creation is a mark of mastery. This is the essence of sexual alchemy, transforming the base impulse into higher purpose. It's not about denial or repression, but about redirection. When we begin to relate to sexual energy not just as a means of physical pleasure, but as a sacred current of creativity, our entire relationship with life shifts. We no longer chase fleeting experiences. Instead, we become the source of power, inspiration, and manifestation. We become creators, not consumers. Alchemy of Transmutation. The word alchemy brings to mind ancient mystics hunched over bubbling cauldrons, searching for the mythical philosopher's stone, a substance said to transform base metals into gold. But this imagery is symbolic. The real work of alchemy was never just about changing lead into gold. It was about inner transformation, the refinement of raw, instinctual material into something radiant, noble, and transcendent. In this context, sexual energy is the base metal, and transmutation is the process of elevating that energy into a higher state of being. And sexual energy is one of the most primal forces within the human experience. It is wild, raw, and incredibly powerful, but left unchecked or misunderstood, it becomes chaotic and compulsive. It can dominate behavior, hijack emotions, and even lead to destructive patterns. This is why the ancient alchemists, philosophers, and mystics approached it with reverence. They understood that anything this powerful could be either the source of a man's destruction or his liberation, depending entirely on how it was used. To transmute sexual energy is not to suppress it. It is to refine it. Suppression creates tension, shame, and guilt. Transmutation, on the other hand, is an act of conscious redirection. It is the art of taking the raw heat of desire and channeling it into something more expansive, passion for purpose, devotion to one's craft, inspiration for service, or even heightened states of awareness. In this process, energy does not die, it evolves. This transformation begins with awareness. Most people experience sexual energy only in its lowest expression, as lust, craving, or temporary pleasure. But with awareness, one starts to feel the deeper current underneath. The yearning for union, the hunger for creation, the spark of inspiration. The spark of inspiration. That deeper current can be moved upward, through the breath, through intention, through presence, and as it moves upward, it changes form. What was once purely physical becomes emotional, mental, and even spiritual. Consider this. The same energy that ignites sexual attraction can fuel a revolutionary idea, a work of art, or a breakthrough in one's personal development. The difference lies in intention and direction. A person who is ruled by lust becomes reactive, externally focused, and often dissatisfied. But a person who channels that same force becomes focused, magnetic, and intensely creative. This is the power of transmutation. It's not the elimination of desire, but its elevation. This process also requires inner discipline. Not discipline as in punishment, but discipline as in training. Learning to hold the charge of desire without immediately discharging it. It means staying with the fire, letting it burn a little longer, letting it cook you from the inside until what emerges is not mere gratification, but transformation. This is not easy. In a world addicted to instant gratification and constant stimulation, the act of holding energy, of building internal heat without letting it spill, becomes a radical practice. But it's also the gateway to immense power. The alchemical process also reveals the symbolic nature of sexual union itself. The joining of opposites, the masculine and the feminine, the active and the receptive, the conscious and the unconscious, mirrors the inner union that takes place when one integrates all parts of themselves. This is what ancient texts referred to as the sacred marriage, or the chemical wedding. It's not always about the union with another person. More often, it's about the inner fusion that occurs when the raw instincts of the body merge with the higher faculties of the mind and heart. That fusion gives birth to new forms of being, to higher consciousness, to genius. In this context, every sexual impulse becomes an opportunity, not something to be feared or judged, but something to be worked with consciously. Each urge carries within it the potential to create, to heal, and to transform. The moment you stop reacting blindly to your desires and begin using them as fuel for something greater, you enter the path of the true alchemist. Alchemy of Transmutation. Transmutation is the heart of alchemy, the mysterious process of changing one form of energy into another, of converting the dense into the refined, the base into the noble. Sexual energy in this light is the rawest form of human power, an instinctual drive rooted in biology, but overflowing with psychic, emotional, and creative potential. To practice sexual alchemy is to master the art of redirecting this energy from mere physicality into manifestation, inspiration, and higher purpose. Unlike suppression, which resists the energy and often results in inner conflict or shadow expression, transmutation is an embrace followed by refinement. It is the choice to engage with desire not compulsively, but consciously. At its most basic level, sexual desire arises from the body's innate urge to connect, to merge, and to create. But when that same desire is held, observed, and not instantly acted upon, it becomes a powerful inner pressure that seeks new channels of expression. That pressure, if not repressed or wasted, can ascend through the nervous system, stimulating not only the body but the mind, imagination, and soul. The body, particularly the nervous system and energy centers, acts as the vessel through which this transformation occurs. Ancient spiritual systems often spoke of this in symbolic terms: fire rising through the spine, serpents awakening, or subtle channels opening. While the metaphors differ, the experience points to something very real. When sexual energy is not spilled out reactively, it intensifies, spirals inward, and begins to awaken other faculties of being. A person may experience heightened focus, a magnetic presence, deeper emotional access, or spontaneous creativity, not because something new was introduced, but because something primal was redirected upward. This is why artists, warriors, philosophers, and mystics have always been preoccupied with the harnessing of sexual energy. It is not a distraction from greatness, it is the source of it. The sexual impulse is, at its core, the desire to create life, to create life. And while that may manifest biologically as procreation, its more subtle and enduring expression is the creation of new realities, businesses, movements, philosophies, inventions, and inner transformation. The act of transmutation is also psychological. It demands that one confront their desires honestly, without shame or glorification. Most people either deny their impulses or become enslaved by them. Both extremes prevent growth. The alchemist walks the middle path, fully feeling desire without being owned by it. In this space, a person becomes capable of converting carnal longing into pure intention, using the heat of passion to forge clarity, willpower, and purpose. Energetically, what happens during transmutation is a reorganization of internal circuitry. The same energy that once scattered outward in search of release begins to spiral inward and upward, nourishing parts of the psyche that have long remained dormant. The heart opens, the voice strengthens, vision clarifies, charisma increases. This is not mystical idealism. It is the lived experience of anyone who has learned to store, contain, and consciously move their energy through inner will, rather than outer compulsion. On a symbolic level, the process mimics the elemental stages of alchemy. Negredo, blackening, where desire is raw and unconscious. Albedo, whitening, where awareness begins to dawn and one learns to observe rather than act. Citrinitas, yellowing, where energy is refined and redirected. And finally, rubedo, reddening, where the integrated self emerges, radiant with power that no longer depends on external validation or physical gratification. To transmute sexual energy is to take something instinctual and craft it into something intentional. It is a philosophical and energetic technology that turns inner chaos into order, lust into inspiration, compulsion into magnetism. This is not done through suppression or moral restraint, but through the conscious, continuous choice to elevate impulse into purpose, fire into light, chemistry into alchemy. The power of integration, shadow and light, within every human being exists a split between what is seen and what is hidden, what we consciously express and what we unconsciously repress. This division is most apparent when it comes to sexual energy. Culturally conditioned shame, guilt, and fear have pushed vast portions of our sexual nature into the unconscious, into what psychology refers to as the shadow. But this repression does not neutralize the energy. It buries it, distorts it, and allows it to influence our lives from behind the scenes. The result is internal fragmentation. We want one thing, say another, act on a third, and sabotage a fourth. Integration is the only way out of this cycle. To integrate your sexual energy means to look directly at your deepest urges, fantasies, cravings, and wounds, not with judgment or indulgence, but with curiosity and honesty. When we deny these aspects of ourselves, they do not disappear. Instead, they begin to express themselves through manipulation, addiction, or self-doubt. The more we push them into the unconscious, the more power they gain. This is why some of the most externally disciplined individuals still suffer from compulsive or self-destructive behavior. They have not dealt with the root. They have only tried to cage the instinct instead of understanding and transforming it. Sexual alchemy begins with bringing light to the shadow. The desires we are ashamed of, the parts of us we label as too much or not enough, are often the very keys to our liberation. They carry information about where our energy wants to move, what we crave to express, and where we have been wounded. The shadow is not evil. It is simply unintegrated life force. When acknowledged, it becomes fuel. When denied, it becomes poison. This is why integration is not a moral or philosophical act. It is a practical one. When a person begins to acknowledge all dimensions of their sexual being, the dark and the light, the raw and the refined, they stop leaking energy. They no longer waste time pretending, suppressing, or chasing superficial validation. Instead, they stand in their truth, grounded and magnetic. People who have integrated their shadow are often those who radiate an effortless power. They are not hiding anything, and that authenticity creates a field of trust and attraction. Sexual energy is particularly potent in this realm because it is so deeply tied to identity, shame, and vulnerability. Most people have never been fully seen in their truth, let alone accepted in it. As a result, they become fragmented. Part of them tries to conform to social standards, while another part secretly rebels or collapses inward. This internal war consumes energy, blunts desire, and weakens personal magnetism. Integration heals this war by creating coherence. When your internal world aligns, when your thoughts, desires, and actions reflect the same current, you become powerful because nothing within you is working against you. This process also self-compassion. The parts of you that once felt ugly, unworthy, or dangerous become understood. They become seen, and in being seen, they soften. This does not mean acting on every impulse or broadcasting every private thought. It means no longer hiding from yourself. It means owning your full spectrum without fear or shame. When you can hold your darkness without letting it control you and express your light without using it to deny your depth, you have stepped into integration. From this place, attraction becomes effortless. People are drawn not just to your beauty or words, but to your wholeness. They can feel that you are not fragmented, that you are not faking confidence while harboring shame. You are present. You are internally united. And because of that, you have gravity. Integration creates a field, a vibration that others respond to on a deep, often unconscious level. It's not about pretending to be perfect. It's about being real. Magnetism through wholeness. There is a certain kind of presence that doesn't need to speak loudly, boast, or chase attention, yet still draws people, opportunities, and admiration effortlessly. This is not charm, not charisma manufactured through performance. It is magnetism. And magnetism is the natural result of wholeness. When a person becomes internally integrated, when their sexual energy is no longer fragmented, suppressed, or leaking, they begin to emit a frequency that others unconsciously recognize and respond to. Magnetism is not something you create. It is something you reveal when you stop pretending, hiding, or chasing. It is the side effect of being fully yourself, connected to your instincts, honest about your desires, and anchored in your truth. Sexual energy plays a central role in this because it is the most primal, life-affirming energy in the human body. It fuels your creativity, your vitality, and your emotional presence. When this energy is owned and refined, it becomes a quiet but undeniable power that radiates from within. Most people misunderstand sexual energy as something purely physical, something that either needs to be satisfied or suppressed. But in truth, it is deeply tied to identity and spiritual presence. People who are disconnected from their sexual energy tend to appear dull, overly cerebral, or ungrounded. On the other hand, those who are consumed by it, driven by compulsion or craving, come across as chaotic, needy, or unsafe. Magnetism lives in the middle path, where energy is not repressed but not leaking either. It is being held, cultivated, and consciously expressed. To hold your sexual energy is to build an inner charge. Think of it like a battery storing potential. Instead of constantly discharging that energy through unconscious habits or instant gratification, you contain it, circulate it, and allow it to feed your body, mind, and spirit. Over time, this creates an electromagnetic presence, a field that can be felt by others without a word being spoken. People may not understand why they're drawn to you, but they will feel your aliveness, your centeredness, your clarity. Wholeness in this context means nothing is being denied or disowned. You're not pretending to be someone you're not. You're not trying to fit into a socially acceptable box that kills your energy. You're not ashamed of your desire, nor are you ruled by it. You've come into right relationship with it. This relationship is internal. It's how you hold yourself, how you move, how you speak, and how you remain connected to yourself regardless of who's watching. When you are whole, you stop seeking approval outside of yourself. That independence is attractive. It shows that you are complete, not desperate for validation, and that you have something rare in today's world: presence. Presence is power. In a culture obsessed with image, performance, and superficiality, presence stands out. It doesn't beg to be seen, it is seen. It is seen. People feel safer around it, more inspired, more curious, not because you're trying to impress, but because you are anchored in something real. The energy of wholeness is also magnetic because it allows others to relax. You become a mirror, reflecting what is possible when someone accepts and integrates all parts of themselves. People can sense your inner coherence. They feel your boundaries, your authenticity, your vitality. And that feeling bypasses the intellect and touches something much deeper. It's not just attraction. its resonance. This is why true magnetism cannot be faked. You cannot imitate wholeness. You either are whole or you are not. And becoming whole is not about perfection. It's about integration. When your thoughts, your emotions, your sexuality, and your intentions are aligned, you stop sending mixed signals to the world. Your yes means yes. Your no means no. Your energy is consistent, and that consistency builds trust, which deepens attraction, both energetically and relationally. Discipline as amplifier, not suppression. Discipline is often misunderstood, especially when it comes to sexual energy. In many traditions, discipline is equated with repression, denial of desires, avoidance of pleasure, or forced celibacy. But true discipline has nothing to do with punishment or shame. It is not the rejection of sexual energy, but the skillful cultivation of it. In the realm of sexual alchemy, discipline acts as an amplifier, not a cage. It is the conscious choice to harness your energy, direct it, and build with it rather than allow it to scatter and deplete you. Sexual energy is powerful because it is abundant and renewing. Unlike other forms of energy that must be gained externally, through food, rest, or validation, sexual energy arises naturally within the body. But this abundance comes with a challenge. Without discipline, the energy becomes chaotic. It pulls attention outward, fuels compulsions, and weakens focus. Many people live in cycles of temporary satisfaction followed by exhaustion or guilt, not because the energy is wrong, but because it's unmanaged. Discipline transforms this scattered energy into concentrated force. Discipline begins with awareness. The moment you notice a sexual impulse arising, you are given a choice. Discharge it, repress it, or work with it. The unconscious response is discharge, seeking release through fantasy, consumption, or habitual behavior. The moralistic response is repression, judging the desire and trying to push it away. But the alchemical response is containment, not in the sense of bottling it up, but in the sense of holding it, feeling it fully without immediately reacting. This is where energy begins to accumulate and purify. The longer you can hold that energy without suppression or indulgence, the more it intensifies. That intensity creates pressure, and pressure, when contained, creates transformation. Just like steam builds in a sealed vessel and powers an engine, sexual energy builds internal force when it is directed instead of dissipated. Over time, this force begins to elevate your consciousness, heighten your awareness, and expand your creativity. It fuels your work, your relationships, your presence. It infuses your entire being with vitality. This kind of discipline is not harsh or rigid. It is devotional. It comes from understanding the value of your energy and choosing to honor it. When you realize that every impulse carries with it the potential for something greater than momentary pleasure, you begin to treat it with reverence. You no longer feel enslaved by your desires, but neither do you deny them. Instead, you learn to ride the energy, direct it upward, and allow it to illuminate parts of you that were once dormant. Discipline also creates clarity. Without it, energy becomes noise, constant stimulation, craving, and distraction. But when you begin to discipline your sexual energy, you create silence in your nervous system. This silence allows you to listen more deeply to your true desires, not just the surface-level cravings, but the deeper longings of your soul. You begin to see what really drives you, what truly excites you, what kind of life you are meant to create. Your decisions become clearer, your direction more certain. Importantly, this discipline doesn't isolate you from pleasure, it deepens your relationship with it. When energy is no longer wasted in constant pursuit, it begins to flow inward, enriching your emotional life, enhancing your capacity for intimacy, and increasing your sensitivity. You become more attuned, more connected, more powerful, not because you've denied your sexuality, but because you've elevated it. The person who disciplines their sexual energy becomes magnetic not because they are withholding, but because they are full of presence, full of passion, full of untapped potential. That fullness is felt by others. It's not about being unavailable or detached. It's about being in control of your own inner fire. Discipline in this context is sovereignty. It is knowing that your energy is sacred and choosing to use it not for escape, but for elevation. Desire as a compass. Not a caged desire is often misunderstood. It's either worshipped blindly or rejected entirely. For some, it becomes an obsession, something they chase compulsively, believing that fulfillment lies just one more experience away. For others, desire is something to be feared, repressed, or judged as weakness. But in the context of sexual alchemy, desire is not a distraction from the path. It is the path. It is not a trap to escape from, but a compass pointing toward your highest potential. When understood and integrated, desire becomes one of the most accurate tools for spiritual and material alignment. Every desire, no matter how irrational, inconvenient, or provocative it may appear, contains vital information about who you are and what you're here to become. The surface-level interpretation of a desire may be misleading, but the underlying energy is not. What you long for, what ignites your curiosity, what moves your body and stirs your imagination, all arise from the core of your being. That core is not just animal instinct. It is creative intelligence seeking expression through you. Sexual desire, in particular, is a powerful expression of this inner compass. It reaches into the deepest layers of the psyche and touches places the rational mind cannot reach. It shows you what you're attracted to, not only in others, but in life itself. The pull you feel toward beauty, intensity, intimacy, depth, or freedom isn't random. It's a reflection of energies you are meant to explore and integrate. When you stop demonizing desire, it becomes a doorway to your authenticity. The reason desire feels so intense is because it carries momentum. It's not passive. It wants to move, to act, to manifest. But that movement doesn't always have to be physical or external. The energy of desire can be directed inward. It can become a source of creativity, insight, and transformation. The key is not to be enslaved by desire, nor to reject it, but to ask deeper questions. What is this desire trying to show me? What deeper need is it pointing to? What part of me is trying to come alive through this longing? Often what we think we desire, sex, status, stimulation, is just the surface layer. Underneath those desires is something more essential. The longing to feel alive, to be seen, to express one's truth, to merge with something greater than the self. When these deeper desires are acknowledged, desire no longer needs to dominate your life with distraction or addiction. It becomes a force of guidance. It becomes fuel. This is where sexual alchemy reaches its highest form, not in the control or avoidance of desire, but in the art of decoding it. Each desire is a message. And when you learn to listen to the energy beneath the impulse, you start to make choices that are aligned not with your ego, but with your essence. You stop chasing and start attracting, because you're no longer trying to fill a void. You're following a map. Desire only becomes a cage when we either indulge it blindly or deny it completely. In both extremes, we lose agency. But when we become aware of desire without becoming possessed by it, we gain freedom. We learn how to move with it, to extract its meaning, to direct its power. This is what makes desire sacred. It holds the tension between where you are and where your soul wants to go. In this way, desire is not a problem to solve, but a language to learn. It speaks through the body, through emotion, through instinct. It pulls us towards certain people, places, experiences, and ideas. These pulls are not always literal, they're symbolic. They represent the aspects of ourselves we are being called to activate. And when we follow desire consciously, we step into alignment with our creative potential. We stop living reactively and start living intentionally, guided by an inner flame that never lies.